everyone's like supportive of me and thinking I should have gotten points. It's nice to see like that, the community. Maybe I have more fans than I thought. I used to think I was pretty widely like hated for one reason or another, and I never quite understood why. But I think this showed me that a lot of people like do watch and do care about me doing well, especially if they didn't like me before or they had no opinion of me before. I think just even those people can see it's just a straight up like robbery, I guess, like a denial of what I had worked really hard for. So it is nice to like see that support, and good things are coming from it. I got arguably the most attention out of everybody in the whole event, even though I lost. So um, just trying to take it for what it is and make the best, situation that I can.
What is up, ladies and gents? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Esparza, coming to you with another great installment of the Grappling Hour. I hope that you're having a good day. We have a very, very good episode up for you guys today. An excellent guest, somebody that we've been trying to get on for a long time, but we're remedying that. We're making it happen here today. I'm super stoked to get to him. But before we do, a couple quick reminders. First and foremost, if you want to support the show, all you have to do is go on over to patreon.com/grappling hour. The way that works is for $5 a month, you can see my interviews 30 days before anybody else. And if you pay a few extra dollars, you can see some extra bonus content not available anywhere else, including tape studies where we go over matches with the athletes themselves. We also do a segment called Roast Raf, where people roast my competition footage. We also have a few kind of mini-sode episodes that we do that I really love doing, and you guys sometimes pitch those out. But our newest thing that we're doing is the road to ADCC. So what we're doing is we're picking an athlete or two, and then we're going over the techniques that they use, a lot of patterns that they have, and just doing a real deep dive on how it is they were able to punch their ticket to the big show. So I'm very excited about that segment. That is something that is premiering only for our premium users who pay just a few extra dollars more. So thank you guys for that. You can also, there it is, swap out. If you want to support the show, Grappling Hour t-shirts right here. Go ahead and go on over to rafasparza.com/merch. Get yours for $25. It supports the show. And I know it's a little warm, but sometimes some of you live in colder climates and maybe you need a hoodie. Or maybe you're going to compete and you need to stay warm. All you got to do, go on over to rafasparza.com/merch or grapplinghour.com. Either of those places will take you to supporting us and giving us some love there. Also, like, comment, and subscribe. If you don't know what you want to comment on, by the end of the video, we will give you a prompt. So worry not, we've got you covered there. And last, not least, join us, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Discord at Grappling Hour on all of those. All right, our guest here today. Well, I'll tell you this. For somebody who's wanted to come on the show, this has been one of the more difficult ones to book just because of schedules. If he's in LA, I'm somehow not. Or if I'm in San Diego, he's busy. And it's not for lack of trying. I've wanted him to come on. Now, granted, there are some people who are like, I'm just not interested in coming on the show. But this is a friendly, mutual, hey, I like what you do. Oh, great. You can come on our show. You kind of like what we do here. So it hasn't been for lack of trying or want or, hey, even out of friendship. But I've been watching this guy do great work for a long period of time, and he continues to make headlines, whether it's through spreading awareness for mental health, whether it's through, I guess, having some issues with not getting points through ADCC, which are questionable at best. Nobody's really explained it since. Kind of weird. Or, of course, his many feuds and slam dunks on Gordon Ryan. So I guess what I want to say is, I want to welcome him for the very first time to our show. One, Adam Bradley. I have to say, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to finally have you here, sir. It's just every time we see each other, it's always warm. It's always hello. It's always great. And in particular, you're an athlete that actually drinks beer publicly. And to me, I'm like, oh, we should do an interview segment. Like, we should go out, grab some beers. And I really wanted to do that segment with you. And I just figured, you know what? Listen, we'll still do that segment in the future. But for right now, we have to start here. So I have to ask this. What is your beer of choice? Like, if you go to a bar right now, what are you asking the bartender to have?
What's your strongest IPA? Is usually what I start with. Um, but I know if they have a Space Dust on tap, that's usually the best bang for your buck.
See, this is how you know you're both economical and at the same time you're going for the highest ABV. Because I look over and I'm like, dude, Space Dust is a huge, huge thing for us at our gym. Our gym owner, that's all he drinks. Like literally, he'll go out and he'll have one other beer and then he goes right back to Space Dust. So you're within good family and Cape here. So that's good to know. I should ask this though. Do you were drinking famously on the Who's Next, the Flow Grappling's version of the Ultimate Grappler. When you did that and you told everybody that you were drinking the night before and you said, hey, listen, I'm not going to get better magically. Had you planned on having a beer that night or was it just something that you said like, you know what, this is silly. I'm stressed or I just want to relax. I'm having a beer tonight. Like, how did that come together? Because I laughed pretty profusely when that happened.
Oh, I mean, I think athletes are, everyone can do what they want. But I feel like within 1 to 3 beers is my limit and still perform well. And if you want to make the excuse that, like, I had a beer, that's why I lost, like, we were probably going to lose that match anyways. So I try not to let it be an excuse. So I think I like to have one at least and just like relax and do what I normally do and not stress myself out too much. Like, oh, I have a match. Now I'm going to take away all of these things I usually enjoy and then stress out even more, more pressure on myself, right? So that's kind of how I go into it. I like to just keep most of my weekly rituals the same, whether it's like I have a beer on Friday night after training, on Saturday, whatever, 11 a.m., whatever time, doesn't really matter.
You say 1 to 3. Like normally I have my ceremonial one and I'm kind of like, all right, guys, listen, I got to do this tomorrow. I have to do that. 2 is me being like, I'm being very social. 3 is like, oh, this could go sideways. Like at this point, I think I could be here drinking a little bit more. So kudos to you for your ability to get 1 to 3. And I do like that you have a specificity to that as well. When you've gone to other competitions, has that been something that you've done? Have you partaken in that? Like, let's say you've weighed in somewhere. Do you then go and be like, you know what? I deserve a beer now.
Oh, for sure. Like, depends. Like if I'm feeling it, I remember there's this one really good memory I have. I believe it's 2018 IBJJF San Diego Open. I had won my weight class, and this was back in purple belt. I won the weight class, and then we're waiting for absolute, me and my buddy, and I see an Irish pub across the street, and I'm just like, hey, we should get a beer. And he's like, no, you're crazy. I'm like, all right, rock, paper, scissors. If I win, you're going to go get a beer with me before absolute. I win, we have a Guinness of all things. And just one is enough. And then we went and competed, and we both won double gold. And I think the only difference was I felt great, and he felt like shit. But it's a really good memory I have.
I mean, listen, the nice part is you put it to science. You were the one that said, hey, listen, dude, let's go get a beer. And now I feel like if that happened to me and you took me out against my will, I'd be like, well, man, I better drink now before I compete because, I mean, it clearly has proven the science correct. So I feel like that is a very smart thing here, sir. So let's start here. I want to kind of circle to where things happen at ADCC. And for me, I watched your trials. You had a great trials run. We were very much enjoying it. And then we got to the finals and we said, this should be a good final. Now, clearly things happened there and people were wondering why there weren't points. In your interpretation, what happened at the end of that match?
If we're just strictly speaking at the end of it, I, was defending the back take. I got to my D path, got the waiter, and I got on top with like 14 seconds left. And he tried to lift me once, and he was fighting for quite a bit. But then at like the 5 second mark, 3 to 5 seconds of him like not being active at all, just kind of giving up, even though he's still on an elbow. And then time went out, and I was like so stoked. I got up, and I was like, I just won trials. That's pretty sick. And I look around, there's no points. I'm like, kidding me? What do I got to get? What do I got to do to get 2 points around here? And so then they stand us up, and it took me like a minute to like get back in the game of that OT. And then I did outwork him in OT. I wish I did more because he was definitely like way more tired than me. But then it went his way with a decision, and yeah, that was pretty rough for me mentally. But I guess the reason I haven't gotten an explanation yet either. I don't think anyone's going to get an explanation, like a technical explanation on why there was no points. But I think they're trying to like not watch the match again and say that he was still fighting the entire time, and that's why there was no points because he didn't settle. Even though it's pretty clear that he did. So I think we're all just as confused as the next guy.
What has the outpour been? Because I've seen a lot of people share the view that you did get points. And so I've seen a lot of people just from my side just putting in like, maybe they don't know you, they're not tagging you, but they said like, hey, I think that's a pretty clear sign or evidence that he should have points. What has that reaction been like?
Well, like in the sense that everyone's like supportive of me and thinking I should have gotten points. It's nice to see like that, the community. Maybe I have more fans than I thought. I used to think I was pretty widely like hated for one reason or another, and I never quite understood why. But I think this showed me that a lot of people like do watch and do care about me doing well, especially if they didn't like me before or they had no opinion of me before. I think just even those people can see it's just a straight up like robbery, I guess, like a denial of what I had worked really hard for. So it is nice to like see that support, and good things are coming from it. I got arguably the most attention out of everybody in the whole event, even though I lost. So just trying to take it for what it is and make the best, situation that I can out of it right now.
Okay, so I guess that segues nicely because you do have a lot of people who I think objectively will watch that and say, hey, if I don't see points, I'd like to know why. So I don't know that I've fully seen an explanation. I know that Mo does a lot of lives, but it's not like there's a press release. There's not anything like that. You don't see any kind of public explanation for it. And this was very clearly after Mo himself said he was putting himself on a judging panel to make sure no shenanigans went down. And yet shenanigans happened. So I guess my thing is, if you're going to publicly declare that you're going to make sure that no shenanigans happen, at the very least, perhaps have a statement ready. And I'm not just saying doing it live very quickly in and out, because I don't think people understand that or will watch it all the way. There are people who watch it, and that's good. But I think there's a very clear delineation of, okay, let's say we're going to be stubborn and not change a thing, which seems to be the status quo that we're running right now. There happens to be a thing called an invite that could very easily remedy the situation where both people could advance and logically go. So has there been any reach out? Has there been any at all indication that you could be somebody who could get an invite?
I'll get to that one in a second. I will say real quick, the closest thing to an explanation I've seen come from him directly is on a live stream, him watching the footage and just going like, shit, that's close, huh? Okay, next. Like that was basically it. Saying he wouldn't have disagreed if they gave me points, but he also sees why they didn't give me points. So it's like, I don't know even what to do with that information. So it's just kind of like, tough luck, kid, basically, is what he's saying. But when it comes to the invite situation, I believe he's made it public enough on his live streams now that I can speak out on it without getting in trouble. I hope. So I did not get the invite, and I'm not even number one on the injury reserves. I'm number two. So I have to hope two people get hurt. It's not personal, it's business. I'm hoping two people get hurt, and then I can get in at the 99.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, because I didn't even know. I thought I heard him say he was going to do an explanation of it, but I was like, I don't want to stick around. Like, I was just there like, are we answering this? And I go, dude, I got other stuff to do. Like, give me a highlight. Somebody package this. Somebody put it up on the next day. That would be great, because that's actually something of newsworthy note. The reason why I think it was funny is that I don't think we should ever be worried about saying things out of turn here. They either happen or they don't. So I think that's part of the thing that kind of, I don't know that it upsets me, but it makes me feel like, well, I don't want to ruin anything. Well, the fact is, something happened. It was unclear. It is up to the organization to make it clear. And then if it's not clear, then perhaps that's why they're getting feedback. And that's why people are like, what's happening here? I don't understand this. And yes, you may make a statement on a live that disappears. So that's why it's almost better that you either have it be a video, have it be something that you clip from that certain live. And that's why, to me, I was just like, I have no idea. I guess I have to ask the person here. So with that in mind, okay, you would be second in line. That's great. I just feel that in this particular case, the only thing that I saw that could have been remedied a little bit better in my brain was Mo said that he wasn't going to do anything. It was the judges first, then him, which was a weird offshooting of kind of retconning what he was there for. So to me, I was like, wait, oh, well, Mo have the final say. So we'll just hear what he doesn't have the final say. He's there to safeguard and be there in case something else happens. So again, not clear. So as a PR guy, that's maybe the one suggestion I would make, is to make a clear delineation of where that comes in. Having said that, if you're number 2 there and there happens to be another tournament that weekend, is there interest to go do that?
Yeah, 100%. Basically, it's going to be whoever invites me first. So, am I feeling overly like loyal and thankful for like ADCC right now? No, obviously not. No. If there was a stronger attempt to explain the situation to me, and my professionalism and my kindness and all that was my like how polite I am to him, all of that was like, what do you call it? Like met with the same energy. You know, if you treated me the same, then maybe I'd be feeling slightly more like, okay, maybe this wasn't like some big conspiracy to screw me over and give someone else, the invite, or sorry, the win. But since, I do feel like I've just been left out to dry and being ignored when it comes to the hard questions, basically I am pretty much going with like, if I get into the other one first, like for sure, I'm going to send it on that side. I think I'm more than happy to do this other event that might be popping up at the same time.
Cool. Good. I mean, listen, I heard Mo recently say that, Craig is creating this event and it can do more harm to ADCC. And I argue this. I think a lot of us root for jiu-jitsu, but don't want to be put with ultimatums. So thus, if you're saying that Craig shouldn't do it, his troll nature is going to do it. So it wasn't a, hey, listen, I hate ADCC. I'm just going to do this. It's like, hey, I have a valid concern, which is, maybe you could stop spending money here and spend it here. And the result of that was, you don't know what you're doing. You're ruining everything. You're not addressing this right. You're not doing this. It just opens the door to competition. And it's what happens with other sports. Other people can go to different teams or different organizations. They become free agents. And more importantly, they're able to figure out what works best for them. So my hope here is this. My hope here is that you do get the invite, or that you do get the invite to Craig's thing, wherever. From my interpretation, you just look like you worked hard for an opportunity and you want the next opportunity that you feel like you have earned. So it's not like trying to sideswipe somebody. And, I guess the nice part about the Craig version is you don't have to have 2 people die to go, because that's the unfortunate part, is you're sitting there being like, well, this voodoo doll's just not working today, but I really need him to have an arm injury very quickly. So I would just say that. And so if it's any version of vindictiveness, I would just tell you guys that perhaps there are things that could be fixed on the other side, rather than blaming the people who are like, man, I just really want my opportunity. So there's that. Let's go to this, though. You did mention for the people that you knew that do like you, or that you've discovered, hey, a lot more people like you than you think. I do know that you are often a target because of your involvement of both Gordon. Sometimes people just don't like you for whatever you are. I've seen that. I know that myself. But what were some of the vitriolic statements that you were getting? Because to a lot of us, you know, I've never interviewed you before. I like you, but we have a lot of friends on this show. So I can't really always say like, oh, this guy over this guy. To me, we were pretty clearly saying those look like points. So just from an objective standpoint of, okay, cool, somebody explained to me, no. What were some of the things that people were saying that perhaps didn't have that nuance, or at least the opportunity to say, hey, listen, he did go from bottom to top. And at the very least, that should start the conversation.
You're saying like, oh, like what's the, like what people are saying to counter, like saying that I shouldn't have gotten 2 points? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay. I think people are, the only people who are like fighting that it wasn't 2 points are like his teammates or people who just like don't like me with a passion for some reason. And it's all very simple answers. Like, there is no nuance to their answers. That's like kind of the funny part. There's like, well, he didn't stop fighting. And then I'm like, well, he did. And they're like, well, he had a switch grip. He was switching. I'm like, he had his hands kind of on my hip, but he wasn't actively switching. And then they're like, well, he wasn't on both butt cheeks, or he was on his back. I'm like, well, in this rule that's written down very clearly, that doesn't have to be the case either. And once I like very like systematically like answer all of those points, they just start like saying names and calling me stuff and getting mad at me. Like, okay, well, you just are happy I didn't win regardless. So it's mostly just like, yeah, the really smooth brain answers are just like, no, because, and then some rule that doesn't even exist.
I think the thing that I've enjoyed in watching your interactions is that you have chosen to take on Gordon a number of times. And I don't know where exactly this started. And it's very clearly delineating like, okay, Gordon's super good at jiu-jitsu. I think we all are in agreement there. It's the stuff that he does online that then becomes, what is this? Like, what is he trying to prove with this? What is he doing here? How bored is he? Is he okay? Because I know for somebody who says, you know, suffer in silence, he's a very loud person about it. So with that in mind, you see that his minions, the mini Karens that are going to come and basically do his bidding. So I think where I get most upset is when I see them going after somebody like you, where you go, hey man, I don't think this is going to work today. This was clearly, you know, a controversial moment at best, but at worst, why are you telling this guy who came up right here to get it and arguably had it that he sucks? Because
Right.
It's absurd to me where they're like, well, he didn't win. I was like, well, you should talk to the people he beat. Didn't just land at number 2 seed or runner-up seed. And even then, what are you watching? So I guess that's something that I have been entertained by. Where do you and Gordon intersect? Like, where did that whole thing begin? Because to me, as an observer, I just see it with everybody. And I'm sure he and I have had some disagreements, but professionally, we've always gotten along just fine. But there's been a lot of stuff that he's said over the years that I go, hey, man, Michael Jordan isn't in the comment section arguing that he's the GOAT. What's happening here? Why do you need to do this? And more importantly, why are you trying to start a super fight with the homeless? Like, you don't get a super fight with the homeless. You're just chiming in being kind of a dick. So where did you two kind of first start interacting?
Yeah, so this started a long time ago, probably 2016. This is probably when it started because, I mean, foolishly, I got myself involved because I saw him ripping into my teammates at the time who didn't speak much English, like all the Autos guys, all the Brazilians that were like fresh in the States and doing really well already. He was just ripping into them because, you know, he was kept on poking and prodding, trying to get matches with all the best guys. And that's the way he went about it, especially with Galvao. So then, me being the English speaker, I would speak up on their behalf. I would even be on their phones and their accounts writing their messages for them sometimes because they just didn't know how to like together the sentences. And I felt for them. It sucks if they can't defend themselves properly against someone who is very obviously taken internet trolling and beefing online just as serious as training jiu-jitsu at the time. So that's where all that started. And then at a certain point, I thought it was fun because I'm like, okay, well, I get to bully the bully and get to troll the troll, and would just say stuff to get his heart rate up. I just like the thought of stressing him out, and I make a lot of really bad jokes, but I just like the thought of stressing him out, making him like upset. I think that's really fun for me, and I used to say a lot about pocket stuff to him back in the day. And one of those things was telling him that I would beat him up, and I was just a blue belt. I was like, I would beat you in a match, blah blah blah, and he took that so seriously, and he has not forgotten that one line I said from way back then. And anything I've said since then, for sure, he clings onto it, and I think he's someone who has a really hard time letting go of grudges. I think that's pretty obvious. So ever since then, he went from like focusing all his target was all the Brazilians, all the people he wanted fights with, and then I just got onto the radar. He's like locking in, and now since then, like he is on it. He's in my DMs constantly. If I forget about him for a few months, randomly he'll just like message me at 4 a.m. his time. I'm like, what is going on here? And in person, he doesn't say anything. It's really funny. Like I'll go up to him in person, just like like doesn't make eye contact with me, and then I walk away, and then he's in my DMs like. So it's a really interesting and funny relationship we got going on there. So it's been fruitful, to say the least.
Sure. Okay, listen, dude, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. There is a certain phraseology that they use for this. So when people are playing a character and then they slowly start to inherit the traits of that character, they call it living the gimmick. So you have a gimmick that you are as a pro wrestler, and then all of a sudden you start thinking, oh my God, I really am the Undertaker. I can lift the dead up. So I think that's kind of something that's happened over time with Gordon, where I just kind of go, hey man, it's one thing whatever you do online, as long as you and I, whenever I see each other, are fine, do whatever you want. But I just am mildly amused by this. To me, though, I think where it starts to bleed into this unnecessary region, or at least one of slight confusion, is when you see him sliding into your DMs and you would see those screenshots. And listen, I don't know the full context. I don't know you messaged him. I don't know you tagged him in something. I know you guys go back and forth. But when you started pointing out what time and specificity on the elements of when you're getting messaged, all I could think of was, I was like, I usually wake up and have some coffee first. Like, I roast a lot of my friends, and I'm up at all hours of the night, but like, I got shit to do. Sometimes I message somebody just to be like, hey man, I'm going to forget this. I know it's 2 a.m. Just talk to me in the morning. The fact that you would get up and be like, what did Adam Bradley say about me today? Let me go ahead and make sure I got punctuate that dots there. Got him. Like, to me, it's kind of funny in that sense. But to see you guys go back and forth, you would almost in some of those messages confuse it for a friendship, because that's the part where I think it is almost transcended to. So it is a very wild journey, to be the least, I think, in terms of phraseologying it. But yeah, I'm very, very confused by that. You said that you have seen him in person. You said that that has happened. I think the part that I got confused about was when people were talking about that specificness of the ADCC run. And then recently you put up something about mental health. And I think it is so wild to me that anybody could have a negative take on you being like, hey guys, just so you know, mental health is being proven more and more to be very debilitating to a lot of people. Oh, look, the comment section will prove me right. Here we go. Here's just some justification as to why mental health might be screwed up. So at what point did you decide to start talking about mental health, given the craziness of our fans and also just that nature of having to be that much more open?
I mean, it's something that I've dealt with since I was like young, right? I didn't have the like cushiest of upbringings, and I think a lot of people, could relate with that and how that could stem, like cultivate, some issues going forward, like whether it be depression or anxiety and all these things. And I think I struggled with it just to myself, like didn't talk about it at all until like my early 20s, like maybe 22. I started like 23 even. And then I think the lockdown really is what made me have to like open up about it because I had a really bad time with lockdown and I was just imploding on myself. And it changed me a lot that few months. And I went through a lot of difficult things in that year. Lost a couple people, in a few different ways. And I think that's when I was like, all right, like if I don't do something, I'm gonna be like in just as a bad shape mentally as I was when I was like a teenager, and I can't do that again. So I think I just started really seeking out help and talking about it and trying to express myself and not be scared of being judged because I think that's like the big thing, especially with men and combat sports. Like we're all scared of looking weak, I guess, for some reason. And if I can help just normalize that and help it seem like it's a very normal, casual thing that doesn't need to be like frowned upon or like, yeah, just frowned upon, and you don't need to worry about opening up. It should be just as normal. I'm having a hard time like finding the words exactly how to express myself in this like in this area yet, but it should be just as normal to speak about the negative things as the positive things. Like, oh, I had a good day is a very easy thing to say, or like, how are you doing? I'm doing well. It should be just as easy to say the opposite, right? But we all avoid that as much as we can because we are afraid of either looking weak or ruining the mood, um, burdening others. And I just would like to get to a place where we can all just be honest. And I think it's so much easier when we are honest, and it's not this like really like exaggerated dramatic experience where I think someone like Gordon thinks therapy is like I walk in, I give you money, you hold me, I cry for an hour straight saying no words, and then I say thank you and leave. I think that's what he thinks it is, and a lot of people think that is. When it really is, you just can talk about anything, and it's someone who is like trained and trusted to be able to help you navigate your thoughts and feelings with you in a very like efficient way instead of you taking years trying to figure something out on your own and seeing how many mistakes you make and how many people you hurt along the way. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, listen, dude, the issue that I think so many of us have with our sport in terms of this understanding is people are very much into the like, if I train really hard, I can win. And you're like, well, that doesn't even happen all the time. Like, you can really want something and it can still, as much as you try to manifest it, somebody might have the same goal and it may not happen. And guess what? You're probably going to go through something when you don't get that. Now you can put that on your shoulders and you can carry that weight, but it's probably going to be increased by other factors in your life. So even at a base, all athletes should have that understanding. And so when I see athletes and I interact with them, I don't know what's going on. I just try to be very like, hey man, if you want to say hi, so say hi. If you need your space, I'll talk to you after the event or whatever. But I don't assume anything because I just figure you guys are going through so much. And that's just on competition day. So we don't see each other day to day. We don't know what's going on. We're not in each other's gyms. But I feel like the best thing you can do is just to try to have a somewhat friendly and encouraging face. Or if I know them well enough, I make jokes with them or I'll roast them a little bit. And it's my way of just interacting with them. The hardest part is if I've roasted somebody and I see that it's affected them or that they're going through something, and then you immediately go like, hey man, what's going on? Are you good? Like, you don't seem this way or you don't do that. And I can only think of how that works for me when I do jokes about people who I very much like. It's much more different when it's just jokes or angry rhetoric at people who I don't like, which I go, what is that? You know what I mean? Like that to me is a whole different burden. So when I saw that you were putting up these things that are very, very clear in saying, I think it's important we talk about mental health. Here's my journey. Here's my interpretation of it. And people are like, boo, mental health. I go, oh my God. Like, all right, well, it's to a group of people who just feel it's not a real thing. And it may be hard to connect to them. and you hope that they never have to deal with it. But if they're doing this, it's likely they are dealing with something. So if they're that strong or that intense about something, they perhaps are making it worse for themselves. And so that's kind of the small sympathy I try to have on this. But I always applaud those who do it in the face of the increasing odds of people being told this is not a real thing, or who suppress it in a way that makes it just incredibly bad. So I was very pleased. When did you start making these little vignettes, and who did you team with to do those? Because I thought they were well done. I thought that it was really cool to see that happen one day on social media.
Actually, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that one more time?
Not at all. Not a problem. I was just asking, who did you partner with and who did you team up with to make those vignettes about promoting the, social, mental health, that sort of stuff, when you were doing that? Because you put together some really cool little clips on your Instagram.
Yes. So I'm very fortunate to be friends with this married couple, Matt and Leia. They own, it used to be Unreal Stories, but now I believe it's Sundoc, and they're on Instagram, and they do a lot of really good work, filming documentaries and short stories, like myself, like a lot of other athletes, and they have a really, really nifty way of capturing like everyone in their best light or their worst light too, and really just really great storytelling. Really great storytelling, and just really good on camera, and really good at interviewing as well. So if you want to follow them, they have a lot of really great content, and they're going to continue making more. And I'm going to continue working with them as well.
That's awesome. And I love hearing that because, yeah, I mean, listen, dude, the more stories we can get out there, the more I think people can relate and they can kind of share their experiences and whatnot, because I think it's so important. And I think the one thing that we're starting to understand a little bit better now is the way that mental health is now being compiled with whatever online personas people have, because that's the other thing is that people aren't taking into consideration when you get all this negative energy. You can probably ignore 2 to 5 to 6 comments. It's when you're getting inundated or it's being weaponized that you realize, oh, I've said that I have issues with mental health. So one way that people are going to feel like they can attack me is to compound that and make it so overwhelming that it feels like I'm going to retreat, or that they're going to make me go through more stuff. And you think, well, that sounds bad. That sounds actually worse. And to me, I think that those who can stand up in the face of that and still get their message out, there is something commendable about that. So I think that's really good, and props to them for helping you make those messages, because I think we're just at the very beginnings of how people are going to continue weaponizing that, and have been. But especially in our sport, since we're the baby sport out of NFL, NBA, like most of those guys make enough money where they don't even have to read it. The rest of us in this sport, it's kind of like, yeah, we don't make enough like that. Like once people start making $15 million, they're definitely going to go through stuff. But I don't know that they're going to be compounded on being next to their phone and being like, read me that one comment one more time. I think we're in a space where we're so in it and connected that one guy who created a troll account could have the time to do 12 different troll accounts just to be an asshole. So that's how much time I think some of these people have on their hands. Adam, I want to get into this. I wanted to ask where your journey began, because to me, I always like bringing on people, and for the very first time on the show, we like to go over where jiu-jitsu intersected in their lives for the very first time. So where did jiu-jitsu kind of find its way, or martial arts, in your life at the very beginning?
So I remember being like 7 or 8, and I was a huge fan of the WWE and wrestling and all of that. And eventually I found out that it wasn't as real. I'm not going to say it's fake. Say it's not as real as MMA. And so when I found MMA, I was like, wow, I want to do that. Before I even started training, I was like 12 years old. I knew I wanted to like fight. And then I was in high school, so I was like 14 at the time, and I was super like not a bad kid, but like I didn't want to do any of my schoolwork. I was probably going to drop out. I just didn't really care about education, and I wasn't really being pushed in that direction by my family either. I had a lot of freedom to do whatever I wanted, you could say. And I ended up getting a lot of detentions for, not turning to work, always having to stay after school. And there was a jiu-jitsu club in my high school at the time, run by a blue belt. And he would just run really basic classes for like an hour or so on cheerleading mats in the cafeteria. And how it all played out was he ended up being the guy who would run detention as well. So I got very well acquainted with him, Mr. Denslow, and he told me like, hey, you should try jiu-jitsu. You don't want to be that guy that goes to night classes or drops out. Like, I promise you that. You should try jiu-jitsu and then, see where we go from there. And I remember seeing it and I thought it was cool. Like internally, I was thinking that's cool, but all my friends were like clowning it because they see a bunch of people doing like hip thrust warm-ups on the mats. And they're like, oh, that looks so great, like so weird, I'm like, yeah, that's stupid. And inside my head, I'm like, I want to do that. So finally I tried a class and there's a little no-gi session. And I instantly was just like, wow, like I love it. This is like something I feel passionate about for the first time in a while. But to continue training as an extracurricular, I had to be passing my classes. So I did stay after school every single day, turned in all my work. I got myself to a solid straight C's, which was good enough. And I started training and I just never went back. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I kept on training throughout high school. I was the second person in my family to graduate high school. And I started training full time as soon as I graduated when I was 17.
That's awesome. Okay, so I want to go back here for just a second because you mentioned pro wrestling. We got to double check. Who were your guys? Who did you like most in pro wrestling when you were on the come up and you were enjoying that?
I met Hulk Hogan. So Hulk Hogan seemed pretty cool. Brock Lesnar at his time, like when he first came in, was super badass. And I used to like work out my traps all the time. So I really wanted like the giant Brock Lesnar traps. So I'm almost there. And then John Cena. I saw John Cena live at a show. That was super badass. Rey Mysterio, The Rock, and probably Kane. Those were like all my favorites.
Okay, so you were a big guy minus Rey Mysterio Jr. guy. So those were your monsters, were your dudes. The reason I asked this is a couple-fold. One, obviously, I mean, listen, dude, my credentials need nothing here. I just want to go over something which made me laugh profusely years ago. And I kind of mentioned this to you a while back. But you hit this move that they referred to as a scorpion deathlock. And I wasn't necessarily mad at you, but I was just like, stop calling it that. And what I always have to tell people is that I want people to be very clear on whoever I'm attacking at any given point. Like, it's not like, wow, this guy sucks. It's like, don't call it that. That move belongs to one man, and that is Sting. And the fact that I see you getting it off of an arm lock is I was like, oh no, who's branding this? And part of me wants to think it was actually Jordan from Subspectrum, at which point he and I will have words another time, but he's a dear friend of the show. And I want to be like, you know better, sir. But it made me laugh because here I have you now that I know you're a pro wrestling fan and they're actually calling it a certain name. And I was like, why are they calling it this? And I think at one point you even told me, you're like, hey man, I didn't name that. I was like, I know. It's just, let me have my anger here, dude. Let me just be mad about that. So.
Yeah, I believe Jordan got pretty excited in the moment because it was a pretty wacky finish that no one's really seen before, or at least not for a long time. And so I think in his excitement, he called it that. I think the acceptable names are, you can call it Scorpion Lock. I think Scorpion Lock is fine, not Scorpion Deathlock. I've heard it called the Mexicana, which I think is pretty cool. The Honeymooner, which that sounds like a wrestling move as well, but I'm not sure. And then I just rebranded it to the Trap Lock since I'm the only one that consistently hits it in competition. And then I will go as far as to say I believe it's an old catch wrestling move that was kind of like forgotten about until I hit it and it went viral. And then I saw a lot more people doing it. So I feel like I kind of just like revived this really obscure arm lock to the jiu-jitsu community, which is pretty cool.
You did. And so I remember John Evans, good friend of mine, instructor, broadcaster, just good people. He showed me it a long time ago, and I remembered looking at it, and it looked like it looked so effortless in the way he did it. I was like, but how do you get this? And I was like, I just can't imagine a world in which people would allow this to happen to them. And, this is dumb white belt nonsense when you're saying it. And then the way he would sneak it on is I was like, yeah, you can't get out. Dude, this really does blow. Okay. So I started using it in my arsenal. People got so used to it. I was like, all right, I'm giving it up. As early as this weekend, I literally was rolling at an open mat. And you can pass it down to new generations because this kid looked at me and he's like, what is that? And I go, hey, man, it's a really cool move. I was like, just do me a favor. Just don't call it a Scorpion Deathlock. It will be fine. But the Mexicana, I think, is probably the one I like the best because it helps when a Mexican's doing it. And it just makes it easier to tell them, like, you'll remember Brown did this. You got it. So I'm a big fan of that. I want to ask this. When you were starting to do this and you were finding your way and you're clearly going through stuff as a kid, did this provide some sort of escapism? Did it provide some sort of direction for you? Because I'm always careful to say to the people who say jiu-jitsu is my therapy, it can help. But I think as a replacement of therapy, not necessarily. So I'm always very cautious on combining those terms. But I am curious on what role it started to shape for you as somebody who was going through hardships and maybe didn't have maybe the rockiest or the easiest path to kind of getting to a good place.
Right. So for me, it was like it gave me a goal to look forward to because before I was very like I didn't really have a solid goal or anything. So I feel like having this dream that was like, oh, like this shiny like light at the end of the tunnel almost kind of thing. Like I was like, wow, like everything I'm doing right now really sucks and I feel horrible, but like if I can just endure and then train my ass off and like see if I can make it to this point, like I think that's worth sticking around for, you know? So I don't, I wouldn't say it's a replacement for therapy, no, but there is scientific evidence of like you feel better, right? It helps like any activity is good for your brain and for your mental health. So I think whatever it is you're doing, I think as long as you're moving, you can be grooving. You know, that's what I say. Keep moving, keep grooving. And for me personally, yeah, jujitsu was that thing that day to day helped me feel better. And then in the long run also gave me this goal to keep looking forward to. And I couldn't give up until I proved to myself if I could or couldn't do it. Right. And I'm just really thankful that I had that to keep me going because without that, I'm not too sure what would have made me want to stick around. Put it that way.
Well, I'm glad you found it. And I think one thing that I do say in the positive side is I think that extracurriculars or activities like this, they can put you in a good community. And I think that that has a lot of benefits as well. I think being around other people who have similar goals or aspirations can help show you a path. So to me, I always think like, you know what? There's not necessarily therapeutic benefits that are like that, but it can provide you more options that help you find a way out of a tunnel, whatever tunnel that may be for you. So I'm super glad you found that. One question that is kind of a primary question we ask here on the show is, when did you fall in love with jiu-jitsu? Now, I know you mentioned it was right off the back, you enjoyed it, but it's one thing to love it in that way, and it's another to love it where you want to follow it as a career. So do you remember specifically when you kind of had it in your brain like, oh yeah, this is something I'm going to pursue as more than just a hobby?
I would say right off the bat, yes, I did like love it where I wanted to do it every day. And then I was still conflicted career wise because like that's not a normal thing people would do, especially back then. And where I'm from, like in New Hampshire, jiu-jitsu is not really a thing. So I'm like, okay, well, I got to find a way where I can go to school and be the first person in my family to go to college. And I was thinking of getting a job in like criminal justice. Like I want to be like a fish and game officer at the time. Like looking up how I can train while going to school in Anchorage, Alaska, and all these things. I'm like, okay, like trying to like make it work both ways. And then like senior year, I'm like, fine, I'm about to graduate, and my counselors are like trying to help me, you know, get into college, all these things. And one day I was like, you know what? Like college debt, that doesn't sound fun. Being a police officer until this job hopefully opens up 30 years from now, that doesn't sound very fun. I like this job idea, but I don't love it. I love jujitsu. I think I'm going to do jujitsu. I'm going to do that full time. And my like counselors and all that, they're like, "Oh, you're going to be the first Bradley to go to college. It's going to be so awesome." Because I have five older siblings that all went through, the same school system. So they knew all my family, and they all dropped out, all these things. So then for me to go to college, they were so excited. I remember that. And then when I told them, I'm like, "Is there like a school where I can just go train like MMA?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'm not going to school then. I'm gonna just train jiu-jitsu." And they're like, "What? What? No, no, no." I'm like, "Sorry." And then that's when I knew. I'm like, okay, as soon as I graduate, 6 hours, 8 hours a day, just at the gym, and I just, yeah, full fledged, just did not look back, no hesitation. There is no plan B. I'm gonna send it on plan A, and if I don't make it, then I don't know.
When did it feel like it was working? Because that leap is so terrifying to so many people. Like, and not a lot of people are going to end up doing it. A lot of people will pick other avenues or careers or things that kind of seem safe. And by the way, college now, not safe. Like, let's be very clear. I love college. I went to college and grad school. But one thing I don't love about it is the way in which people try to make it seem like college people are like, oh, people who don't go to college suck, or vice versa. And I'm always like, do what you need to do. Like, I went to get skills that I didn't know that I even needed then. I just knew I needed more of whatever I had. And I found that. And I find that people who do trade schools or say they go through jiu-jitsu, if they know they want it right away, they want to get going on that career as soon as possible. One thing in college that I found very hilarious is they're like, cool, did you like the stuff that wasn't the stuff you really enjoyed? And I go, not particularly. Like, cool, you're going to do 2 years of that. And then you get to the good stuff. And I go, I don't want to do 2 years of that. And they go, no, 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 no. You got to get this science down. I go, I don't want to know about science. What's the easiest science? They're like, Earth's dynamic weather. That sounds dumb. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to talk. Tell me how to be good at talk and do computer things with talk. And they're like, nah. So when it comes to you doing this, taking that leap, going to the next steps, where for you did it feel like it was like, okay, it's starting to pay off, it's coming together, and I made the right choice and I did the right things to start getting here?
That took a very long time. So I started training full time at 17. I was already with a coach at the time who was like the best in New Hampshire at the time. So I put a lot of trust in him. And I was legit like in my car, like sleeping in my car overnight because I didn't have gas to like drive back and forth. So I just wake up at the gym the next day and start training again. And most people are like enjoying their vacations, so, like being a teenager, and I was just training a lot. Like it was crazy. And I had him set me down one day, and he was just like, "Man, I know you want to like be a jiu-jitsu rock star, but let's be honest, like that's not going to happen. You should go to school, you should learn a trade, do something else." Because he went on to say like I'm not very strong or athletic, and insulted my intelligence and all these things. Said that I'm not gonna cut it. And I think that was his way of trying to care about me, I guess, at the time. But he was also a very tough coach on me, like not very kind. So that crushed me, and I felt very down. And for me, like I said, there was no plan B. Like I was in such a bad state of mind back then. Like I hated every other part of my life at that point, like my home life especially, where I was like, man, without jiu-jitsu, or if I can't do jiu-jitsu, I might freaking, I don't know, I'm gonna go like a big thing over there is like heroin and all that shit. I'm like, I might just end up just being a loser, and I can't live with myself like that, being like these other people suffering that same fate. So I was just gonna be like, I either am the best in the world at jiu-jitsu or I kill myself at the time, which was not healthy at all. But that was my mindset back then. And so it was a great motivator for me to train. And I went through that like whole thing of the person I worked with the most telling me I wasn't gonna cut it. And so that just like killed me because I wasn't winning much at all. I was training full time and still having such low confidence. that I would be, barely getting silver at like local tournaments, and then I would just like forget about it. And then I finally left that gym. I finally parted ways, and I started training with the MMA team, and I was better than a lot of people there. So it wasn't like the best training, but they were also friendly and so supportive of me that I liked training there, and I trained really hard, and I actually started winning a lot of tournaments locally in the area. So, but then I would go to Worlds or Pans or something, lose first round. So I was like, man, I'm still not where I need to be yet. And that's when I made the decision to move to Atos in San Diego, and I saved up as much money as I could, had like $900, moved here, found a couch to sleep on, no job, just a bicycle. Had 20 bucks by the time I got settled in, and then found a job. Started training full time at Atos to prove that like if I train with the best guys in the world, then I can become the best in the world. That's like maybe I need to change my environment. And probably a year in the training at Atos, finally I was like winning stuff because I still was struggling with confidence, like double silver and then everything. And then finally I won American Nationals, and I was like, shit, I'm getting kind of good. And then I won Noki Pans, and I blew out, and I was like, okay, I think I'm kind of good at Jiu-Jitsu. And then I won Noki Worlds Absolute, and I was like, okay, I can win all of these things now. I just have to believe, and it just snowball effect from there, just confidence built. And so since 2016, after starting in 2010. So 2010, 2016, I wasn't quite sure, and then finally it like clicked, and now here I am.
That's good. And I want to say there's kind of something I wanted to give a little bit of credit to, which is it seems like you have a certain kind of ingenuity, which is, yes, see it, believe it, achieve it sort of thing, which is you could go through some strife in order to make it happen. But then once you did, it was great. But you recently also started doing something that I could never imagine myself doing, which is, correct me if I'm wrong here, you started redoing from the inside upholstery and rebuilding a sleeping quarters or like a living quarters in a van or like a bus, a mini bus of some sort. Did you redo that? Am I wrong on this? And how did you go about wanting to do that?
Okay, so yes, I almost did the interview inside the school bus. I thought that'd be kind of a fun setting, but I decided to be boring and sit on a mat instead. Kind of looks like I'm in prison. The background behind me. I realized that halfway through the interview here. But yeah. So out of necessity back then, working at Atos and all that, I was making so much money, so I did move into a van. I was like, well, I live in the most expensive city in the world, or sorry, in the country, and I still don't, I can't, like, I'm expected to train full time and teach and compete and all this. So I'm going to do the van. I'm very uh, low, like, I'm very easy. Like, I don't need much. So yeah, I bought a van and I did that for 2 years. And it was honestly super fun. Maybe the first 2 months it took some getting used to, but like people ask me what I like about it. I'm like, imagine anywhere you go, you have your bed right outside, and how sick that is. Where like I'm clocking out, see y'all later. I'm taking a nap, and it's right there. I think that's what I miss the most. So out of necessity at first, but then I grew to really like it, and I got rid of the van. Um, I'm in an apartment now, and I hate rent. You know, like I can afford it just fine. Like I don't want to brag. I'm doing really well these days. Um, but that's why I bought the bus. 'Cause I'm like, okay, I want to do that again, but I want to do it bigger and like lavish. Lavish RV. And so I bought this 35-foot 1994 school bus diesel. It's a tank, and it's a really fun project for me. And if you want to relate that to my mental health as well, like I need something outside of jiu-jitsu to do. Like I got a part-time job like a year ago, no, like 2 years ago, just for fun, just to get my head out of jiu-jitsu because I like having something else to focus on. And so I bought the bus like a year ago, and I've been working on it. And it's so crazy, like these things I never thought about before, like being a mechanic and like learning how to fabricate things, like all these new things it's forcing me to learn. Um, I think it's really fun. So now I'm in the process of cutting this whole bus in half actually and raising the roof and welding it all back together to raise the interior height on it. And so yeah, it's been a fun project, and eventually it's going to be the nicest studio apartment in San Diego. And I'm probably going to do that for a while and just stack a crap ton of cash that would be otherwise wasted on this black hole we call rent.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I understand exactly what you're mentioning. My brain doesn't operate like that. Like, as it is, something breaks down in the house, I got to look up a YouTube video and I got to be like, how the fuck does this work? Like, I don't know how a washer and dryer works. I have to break this thing down. So I'm so happy we live in an age where we're doing that. How are you doing that? Or is it similar and you're learning these how-to videos? Is there some sort of inclination you have to this? Like, how are you going about doing that? Because I wouldn't know even where to start, especially in redoing a whole bus like that or a van.
Right. Thankfully, there is a lot of sources online, and with the economic state the way it is, more and more people are finding this alternative path for living. And so the online resources are becoming pretty endless. Now you do have to like sift through people who are not doing it the right way. So it's a lot of studying, and honestly, I am outsourcing whatever I need to outsource. Right, I'm not going to weld this bus together on my own. I'm, hiring a welder who's been on the job with me for a bit now, and all the stuff that's going to be like, I need to do this right, or I'm gonna die, like like doing the electrical work for welding, all these things. Like definitely outsourcing that, but the overall plan I do have in my head just from studying build after build after build, and I'm on all the Facebook groups, I'm on all the forums, all the things. So if you look at it as a whole, it's so overwhelming. There's so much to do, but one job at a time, it's a lot more, easy to digest. And when it's all said and done, I'm probably gonna put like $35,000 into this freaking bus, but by then it'll be a sick house I can live in for 10 years if I want to, and then sell it for about the same price I built it. So I think it's a really good investment and keeps me going. I think it's gonna be a really fun project.
I was about to say the cost you just mentioned was like what, 1 month's rent for a lot of people or something to that effect. Like depending on your region, that's like a month and a half worth of rent that you're putting into it in doing that. So yeah, it'll pay for itself very quickly. I just love the fact that, as you mentioned, it's a good project to have outside of jiu-jitsu because, when I'm done with jiu-jitsu, I do a show about jiu-jitsu, which means that helps, but then I got to do other stuff. So I try to find things that I can do, or my wife will suggest like, hey, why don't we do this? And I go, fine, sure. I'll get my brain off of it, but it's good. And it helps to keep your brain sharp so that when you come back, you're not so obsessed with something you miss the most mundane detail because your brain's just a little dead. So I think it's good. I think it's very good. And I guess I should apologize here because while looking at your profile again really quickly, I did see you got a new tattoo. And I believe it is in this region right here, right? Okay, so hold on. Let me give you the full shot here. So what exactly did you just get put there, sir?
It is a scorpion done in American traditional.
Okay.
It's meant to be like a black belt. You can see a little more closely. It's the same design. Similar design there. Not the best quality here, but it's my 3-year anniversary coming up this year. So I want to do like a black belt tattoo like most people do, but not your traditional like getting a black belt in my ribs and saying Jiu-Jitsu saved my life. I want to do something where it's like, if you know, you know. If you don't know, it's just a scorpion, and that's cool.
Well, two things here. One of my friends and I, he has tattoos. I have zero. One of our shared things to do is continuously talking about how terrible so many jiu-jitsu tattoos are. He one day put it to me, he's like, show me one good jiu-jitsu tattoo. And I go, I'll get back to you. And I was like searching through my friend's stuff and I was like, oh, that one's not good. Don't like that. Nope. That's good. I like that. But it also does give you branding rights. So yeah, I think you're right. You can't call it a scorpion death lock, but a scorpion lock, when you've got this, and this is part of what's isolating it, I retract my statement. You have it. You have a tattoo now. So I won't give you full rights to a scorpion death lock, but a scorpion lock, 100% with you on that. I feel like we can come to an agreement. Now that you have the tattoo, I'm like, well, shit, he got a tattoo there. So what am I going to do? I can't tell him no at this point.
That wasn't really on purpose, I guess, because originally I was going to get it on my foot, and then I just decided I wanted to do American traditional like half sleeve to start. And with the scorpion lock, yeah, I guess that's like some motivation behind it. But people are like, oh, like, are you a Scorpio or something? I'm like, no, I just think this scorpion is probably one of the most badass bugs there are. Like, whoever created the scorpion is looking at this like, let's make this like arachnid that's armor plated, has multiple legs, things that like, it's gonna have mandibles to bite you. It's got giant ass claws that pinch you and rip you apart if you're bug sized. And like that's not enough. It has this crazy fast stinger that's venomous or poisonous, whatever you know, and it's gonna jab the shit out of you with that. Like, what a metal freaking creature. You know? So I think that's pretty cool.
Kudos to you. And, you know, normally I ask people if they were pro wrestling fans, if they had a finishing move. It looks like you already have one. I think you're set.
Yeah, I think Scorpion Lock looks cool enough.
I think so.
I do want to get, like, that's like a dream, like, retirement gig for me. Is I would love to get on some pro wrestling shows because as a kid, I thought it was so cool. And I'm like, you know what? When I'm done, like, for real fighting, like, I would love just to go entertain a bunch of hillbillies and get freaking go in a ring and just throw people around, get thrown around. It'd be so freaking fun. So maybe someday.
I think you would be surprised how manageable that of a goal that is for you, because every region has needs, and there's some actually really good schools out in San Diego. I see a lot of their talent come back and forth. And, you know, I mean, the weird part is they're starting to implement a lot more jiu-jitsu. I actually just went to a local show here that's based from, I think, the Pacific Northwest. So they're coming from Seattle. And Tom Lawler was there. And Tom Lawler famously fought in the UFC. Good fighter, really fun to watch. But he was always making these huge entrances in character. And he has transitioned so well to this pro wrestling world, but he's utilizing like heel hooks. He's utilizing like jiu-jitsu transitions. He's inverting. And I go, oh, yeah, a lot of what we do is very comparable to this. So we'll definitely clue you in on our little thing that we call WWE BJJ, where every year we give away a championship belt to those who do the best integration of pro wrestling into the world of jiu-jitsu. And I tell everybody this, I say, think of it like jiu-jitsu Halloween, so that anytime you wanted to be an asshole in competition and you have to reserve yourself, you know, you film a video here and you can be that asshole. You can be the duplicitous person. You can do whatever it is you want to do. And so a lot of times whenever I'm in that world, like if I'm playing an instructor, I can be an asshole instructor, you know, in a fun and light way. And for the best submissions, we give out a championship belt that's customized that we make. We have a very good artist who actually pulls out some of the best stuff I've ever seen. So I'm just saying it'd be a good opportunity for you to show that you could beat people. So we'll let you know when that comes up.
Yeah, keep me posted.
The last thing I wanted to say is, you know, we've been really good about kind of opening up where it is things have gone for you. You know, I want to ask what is coming up next. Obviously, we're kind of on hold for whatever comes up, maybe in August. But what are you looking to do beyond that? Like, what does the rest of this year look like to you in your head, sir?
Well, currently, you know, that last camp took quite the toll on my body. So I'm still kind of PTing a couple of different things and trying to take care of myself and get back into like competition shape without, you know, re-aggravating any of these injuries. So right now I'm just laying low, working on some projects and, you know, trying to slowly ramp up and get my body ready to do a potential camp for August, whether it's for Craig Jones or for ADCC. We'll see what happens. Other than that, I would like to try and do American Nationals maybe at the end of June if I can get ready. I know it's a little soon, so I'm going to see if I can do that one because I haven't won that one at black belt yet. And I'm just trying to like check off the IBJJF titles that I want at black belt, and then I'm probably not going to do IBJJF that much anymore. So probably just Nationals, Nogi Pans, Nogi Europeans, and then Nogi Worlds. And that's my checklist for like for sure tournaments that are happening that I want to be. Other than that, I would really like to find a home somewhere in some kind of like, whether it's Polaris or, like, all these different like organizations that are happening these days, holding tournaments and super fights. I'd like to find a home somewhere and just compete with one or two different like promotions for a while that would give me a fair chance and treat me well and pay me well, and just put my energy into those things, because we'll see what happens if I do another trials run again after all that, because I put my body through so much just to have it be like a whole fiasco and all that. I don't know if I want to put my body through that again if the rules aren't clear cut as they should be, So just stay healthy, work on things I need to work on, and we'll see what pops up for me next. But for sure, Nuggy Worlds is like the big goal for me at the end of the year. That's for sure happening.
What's great, man. I'm going to give you a second here to go ahead and go through any sponsors you want to take care of, or anybody who has been helpful to you, I guess, in your ADCC run or has been very instrumental. But before I kind of give you the mic there, I just wanted to say, man, like, I want to compliment you on the way that you have carried yourself, because I'll be honest, I don't know how I would have reacted in your position. Like, I'm very much I like to have things be by the book and by the rules, but if your rules are open to interpretation, then maybe I might have a little bit more of a sharper tongue. And I feel like you've definitely reposted things or have put things that have been like, hey, listen, these people are saying this, or these people are saying this. But one thing that I kind of want to make clear is I hope we get past this element of, well, he's not doing it politically right. Like, he shared that, so maybe it's going to decrease his chances of going. When in actuality, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, you should have gone, in my opinion. And if you weren't going to get in, you should have had the first invite. And so when that becomes something that people start talking about, I go, I'm not sure people understand what this does. It further compounds the problem rather than solving it. And that would probably aggravate me. But for the most part, you've kept an even head. And I know it's difficult to do in our insane climate of fans and minions who come and say bullshit. So kudos to you, sir. And it's a testament to how well you have worked on your mental health to be in a good state. And I wish you continued great mental health. But I want to give you a go ahead and let you go ahead and thank anybody you want to thank for helping you with that camp or helping you to stay on the up and up on the jiu-jitsu world.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here and giving me the chance to speak about all these things. And I guess if I'm going to thank anyone first, it's going to be, my team here at the arena. I have a really great place here teaching and working with my students. And, they just give me a really great place to be myself on the day-to-day. Thanks to B Team as well for opening their doors and letting me come train whenever I want, for however long I want, really. They've been so helpful to me. And I feel like I found a really nice home with them after kind of floating around for a little bit. And thanks to my sponsors, Jiu-Jitsu, to Electro Performance. Go there if you want your strength training or really good programs online. And Monkey Tape. Monkey Tape's been really helpful for a long time. And I know I'm forgetting a few, but just thank you to everybody who supports. And I have some big things coming up. I have my own website popping up pretty soon, travhub.com, where you'll be able to buy my instructionals, my merchandise, and lots more. So stay tuned.
Well, kudos to that, sir, and compliments to you. I want to say this, though. Let's put this down. The next time we do this, let us try to make it so that we are doing it at a bar and we can have a far more wide-ranging conversation about a lot of stuff. Now that you've been on the show, we've covered the origin story, but there's so much more to you that I know that we didn't even really get a chance to address. But I thought you're kind of a great linchpin, I think, for helping other people find some better resources for mental health. And I think that's the most important thing. Like, I feel like it's fun to talk about wins and losses, but I think that will outlive any gold medal in the future. So compliments to you, man. And I'm glad you're here. So I wish that everything goes well for you. And I'm glad to see you here today. But next time we'll do it over some beers. And maybe I make my way down to the arena. We train a little bit. You tell me how to do a scorpion lock. I tell you how to do a scorpion death lock. We just trade exchange and do all that.
Yeah, perfect. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. I'll talk to you off air in just a second. I'm just going to close this up. My thanks to you, Adam Bradley, everybody. All right, guys. That was a great interview. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. Reminders, first and foremost, where do we put the swap out? Boom. Look at this. This is a t-shirt. Go grab it. RafaSparza.com/merch. You can get that or a hoodie or both. Both is $60. You save $10 by buying both. Just saying. Look it up. Or you can go to grapplinghour.com. You can also like, comment, subscribe. And we were asking you guys, if you wanted to comment on this, it would be great. But what is it that we want you to comment on this one? How about this? What is the first thing you would renovate if you were to redo a bus? Let's do that. Like, where would you start to renovate if you were doing your own bus renovation? So that's 2. Number 3, you guys can also find us on patreon.com/grappling hour. You go over there and it's very simple. You give us $5 to see the interviews 30 days before everybody else, or you pay a few extra dollars to go and check out our premium content. And again, Road to ADCC is coming up very shortly. And I think you guys are going to like that segment. It is a very, very fun segment that we are going to do. And that's going up only to premium members. Additional reminders, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on their podcast page, and on our Discord at Grappling Hour. Ladies and gents, that's going to do it for us. It's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats.